What's up, Savvy Expats? So today we have a special guest from Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm very excited to introduce you to her, but let's actually Corrine, can you just introduce yourself to everybody? Tell them a little bit about where you came from and your story.
Well, hi, Evan. Thanks for having me on the
Yes.
channel. First of all, my name is Corrine Lujan. I am a real estate agent in Las Vegas, Keller Williams Realty Las Vegas. I'm also an accredited marketing partner with Ayala Land. Just became that. Oh gosh, I'm so old. I have a long list of what I am, but I am born in Manila. I
Okay.
came to the United States, immigrated to the United States with my family when I was 5 years old.
You're
So,
fine.
yeah, but
And
I'm from Pateros.
from Pateros. And ever since you've been in Las Vegas, or did you go around the U.S.?
Oh no, I really was raised in California.
Okay.
Yeah, I moved to Las Vegas in 2011, and I love it. Yeah.
Right. Which parts of California were you raised in?
I grew up in Northern California,
Okay.
the Bay Area, like about 30 miles east of San Francisco, southeast of San Francisco. I went to UC Berkeley, and I have twin daughters, and I just became a brand new Lola.
Wow, congratulations.
Yes, thank you so much.
Congrats. So, you moved to Vegas for realty specifically? Is that
No,
correct?
actually, when my daughters graduated from college, and I thought, well, let's try a new adventure.
Mhm.
So I visited some friends in Las Vegas,
I see.
and I was amazed. Like 99% of the world, when they think of Las Vegas, they just think of the Strip, right?
Right.
Well, there's so much more to Las Vegas. Beautiful residential communities,
Right.
everything. So I just fell in love with it,
Mhm.
and best move I ever made.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
And other than being in realty, this is actually how Corn and I met, is through
Yeah.
your journalism. Can you speak a little bit
Yes,
about that, how you
yes.
got into that?
So my first career was as a journalist, a print
Mhm.
journalist. I wrote for Filipino-American newspapers. I also did some broadcasting,
Okay.
and I also did some print journalism for mainstream media as well. So I just got back into writing again. I've written over the years. It's really my creative juices. Really, it's my passion
Right.
always. Um, so I started writing about almost like my stage in life, about people like maybe retiring to the Philippines or rediscovering their roots here.
Mhm.
So I started writing for Asian Journal. It's a column called Leaving Sin City.
Mm.
Leaving Sin City. And I didn't know just how relevant and timely this topic is.
Right.
So many people looking to move abroad,
Right.
especially to the Philippines, of course. And then I found you. I'm like, so cool. No way. This Filipino-American, Chicago-born dude. I'm like, I have to meet him. I'm here.
Yes.
I hope he can meet.
Yeah, and that's actually, we struck this up maybe just within a week.
Yeah.
You came here to the Philippines,
Yeah.
you're vacationing, and here we are today. But one specific question that I've been curious about is, what got you into the topic of Phil-Ams or expats in general leaving the U.S. for the Philippines?
For me, myself, I've started, I've had clients talking to me about it when I'm showing them houses, or they want to sell their house in Las Vegas or move to another house, buy another house, smaller house or one-story house, whatever. They're older, right?
Mm.
And they're just getting sticker shock at how much prices have gone up.
Um,
So they're saying, you know what? I think I want to move back to the Philippines.
Right.
Well, on a more personal level as well, is my father. Um, he retired permanently to the Philippines 3 years ago. So he is living here now in Pateros. So, and I saw the benefits of that as well financially. I mean, like his care, he's got some mobility issues now. And when he was in assisted living in the States, the cost was enormous,
Right.
And I think he felt like I didn't work. I think it's a lot of retirees or would-be retired, soon-to-be retirees are going, I didn't work so hard all those years, save my money, invest wisely, to have it go to healthcare costs.
Right.
And it's
Right.
astronomical cost in the US, even with insurance, which he had. So he moves here, and I know that we're unique in that we still have a property here. He still has a home
Yeah.
here, family here, and his care, full-time live-in care,
Mhm.
is a fraction
Wow.
of the cost in
Wow.
the States. and the quality of life and the quality of care. There's so much to be said for that cultural affiliation, affinity, right? With somebody, your caregiver, who is your same culture, speaks your same language.
For sure.
You know,
For sure.
my dad is, we've been in the States for over 50 years. He was over for 50 years. So, very familiar with Western culture, but still, there's still that, even I feel that cultural affinity with Filipinos.
Absolutely. And you're mentioning that one of the main reasons that expats leave the U.S. for the Philippines is because of the costs.
Yeah.
Is there any other reasons that you found interviewing these expats of why they leave for the Philippines?
You know what? They just, it's that whole rat race atmosphere. It's the West is a very consumer oriented, I hate to say it, materialistic, who's got the car and the house and this and that, the
Keeping
clothes.
up with the Joneses.
Keeping up with the Joneses. And it's not, it's, and I hear this all the time too. It's like, we're just working to pay our bills, So it's a lot like that. And honestly, I just wrote about the epidemic of loneliness in America. The U.S. Surgeon General published an 81-page report that just came out in May of this year.
Wow.
Saying, about the physical and health effects of loneliness. Yeah. Not just mental. And I think when I've talked to expats or would-be retirees who want to come here, that's also part of it. They have family here. They have, neighbors that they talk to. I think I've talked to my neighbor maybe once. Wave.
Wow.
Hey, it's garbage day. Don't forget. Something like that, So I think that's a big part of it as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. It's just that connecting with people,
right.
And that's very us, right?
Absolutely.
That's a very Filipino thing too.
Actually, I would definitely say I can agree with this, because even though I had majority of my friends, of course, is from the U.S., but when I moved here to the Philippines, I realized, culturally speaking, the Philippines is much more of a relations-based type of society.
Absolutely.
Whereas in the U.S., you have your own thing going on, I have my own thing going on. Let's just stay in our own separate lanes because we have work to do, right? But I think that's why so many expats are leaving for the Philippines. Once they get to that retirement age and they're not working anymore, they've already made their life in the U.S. and their income, then it's time to actually enjoy life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so I was actually reading your article, your first article to be exact, that you've ever published, and you were interviewing an American expat, is that right?
Yes. He was a former resident of Las Vegas, and he moved here, oh gosh, I forget now, like just 2020, permanently, 2021, something like that.
2021.
Yeah.
And I was reading a little bit about it. One of the reasons he said he moved here is because of the costs.
Yes.
His living expenses here is $1,500 per month. Was there any other reason that he moved here? Specifically, does he have a wife or anything?
Well, he was divorced in the U.S., and I think he did find somebody here. He has a live-in girlfriend, and I believe they just got engaged or something like that. So, and he was telling me, for the first 2 months that he lived in the Philippines, I think he was on Bohol. He said he's 69 years old now. And he said he walked the beach every day, 2 hours a day kind of thing. And a few months later, his blood pressure issues completely gone.
Wow.
Yes, I know.
That's
and
crazy.
He's healthier. He's eating healthier. His just the stress level is gone. And you just don't realize until you're out of it. Like I'm a workaholic. Fine, I'm a real estate agent. I have to be. I'm a workaholic. I'm a rush junkie, meaning I love the hustle and bustle.
Yes.
But when I come here, it actually takes me a few days to just like unwind a little bit, to stop it.
For sure.
And now I'm kind of dreading going back to that same rush, you know? So if we're sitting around having coffee like this, and you're like, you're lazy, Corrine, right?
Yeah.
We're lazy.
Absolutely.
So this is nice. This is, we're connecting with people.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's countless expats that move to the Philippines, and it plays a big effect on their health.
It does.
Just to be in an environment, like you said, you leave the rat race.
Yeah.
You're not in that stressful environment, work, work, work type of mode, and you get to unwind a little bit.
Yep.
I'm sure it's very rejuvenating.
Well, I had somebody comment on my Facebook page when I was here, when I posted that my article about the epidemic of loneliness in America, and he had said he's had more meals and get-togethers with friends in the 2 months that he's been here than in the last 5 years in the States.
Wow.
I kind of have to say the same thing, although with me, it's like I've had more rice here in the last week than I've had all year.
Yeah.
It's all good though. It's all good.
Yeah.
But I thought, that's sad. That's
Yeah,
sad.
it is. And one thing I've noticed is, because in the US, everything's very fast paced.
Very fast paced.
But once you come here to the Philippines, you just adopt that very mellow vibe.
Yes.
And like you said, it'll be a little bit hard for you to go back because, you know, you're going to be back
Yeah.
into the work mode. I was saying in one of my past videos that one of my lunches with an expat was 4 hours long.
Yeah.
Just a lunch. And because it's, you get to unwind, you get to relax,
Mhm.
and then really enjoy life and conversations. Now, my next question is, because I read your article, and what was intriguing about your article is that the title was something along the lines of the American dream being found in another country. Or
Yeah.
my question is, do you think that the American dream is dead, or do you think that it's no longer found exclusively in America?
So that article was titled, "Is the New American Dream Leaving America?"
Right.
And actually, what I should have, now that I think about it, I should say a new American dream, not the American dream. A new American dream is leaving America. And more people are saying that because they feel like it's just not possible anymore to achieve. The American dream used to be home ownership,
Yeah.
2 cars, 2 kids, you
Yeah.
know, nice wife and blah, blah, blah. Great job.
Right.
Well, home ownership is becoming more and more out of reach for people. It's just really hard for a young couple, first-time
sure.
homeowners, you know, without assistance
For sure.
from family members or anything like that to achieve that. So people are coming in, or like retiring on, you know, $2,000 a month pension or whatever, and living a comfortable life.
Yeah.
When a 1-bedroom apartment in Las Vegas is $1,500 a month and not in the best neighborhood,
Yeah.
that's, what are you gonna do? You know, you can't live on $500 a month.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, there's so much other things, and then with your healthcare costs, stuff like that. So I think it is an American dream, an American dream to leave America.
Right.
It
for
is.
sure. And we were talking earlier, it's hard to move to the Philippines and actually enjoy life here if you're living on a Philippine income, right?
Yes.
So my
I
only
agree.
thing is I think for some people it'd be ideal for them to stay in the US just to establish the income,
Yes.
but then come here when it's time to actually enjoy life.
Yes.
So what's your plan as far as living in the Philippines? Any plans with that in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I plan to, I don't think I'll ever fully retire from real estate. I love real estate. My Lola was 94 years old. Up until 92, she was still running the family lechon business, you know.
Wow.
So I kind of plan to maybe do something like that. And also like be involved in charity work here. Okay, that's gonna feed my soul.
Yeah.
You know, maybe the real estate and the part-time stuff will feed my living expenses, but you got to have something that feeds your soul. So my plan is within a year or two, start planning, you know, really target where I want to be and what kind of residence that I want to have here.
Amazing. So actually, before this interview, we were at one of our favorite restaurants, Manam, talking a little bit about the cultural differences between the U.S. and the Philippines. And I wanted to get your insight on this. As you know, since you grew up in the U.S., you know how it is to be more career-driven. And that's just how we as Americans are, more career-driven. But here in the Philippines, it's more relationship-driven and close-knit families. What is your experience with that? Because your dad also needed care recently with his health. Was it hard for you to let go of your career to take care of him?
It was. So when he moved here, first of all, it was a long journey. right? So his physical health was slowly kind of, lessening and deteriorating, for lack of a better word. And so, my sister and I, we, especially me, because I had the time, I had the flexibility as a real estate agent, right? So my sister was working a 9 to 5 kind of job. So, my parents felt like, well, we can call on Corrine anytime. She can come over anytime. So not knowing I work 24/7 kind of thing.
Right.
But anyway, so yeah, it was catering to their every need, setting up their Wi-Fi or whatever it was, right? Dealing with contractors and things like that. So, and I felt very obligated. I felt like that was more the Filipino in me than the American.
Right.
Than the American. Although, a lot of Americans, very, very caring people as well, very nurturing with their family members, of course. But in the Filipino culture, that's ingrained in us, right? That was ingrained. And no matter, been in the U.S. since I was 5 years old, I'm still hardcore, deep down Filipino in that regard. So, and it is very different. Now, my children, my twin daughters, they're American born, good girls. I've raised them. They know Filipino values, but at the end of the day, they are American. They are American. Quick story is, one time we were in the car, me, my dad, my mom, and my sister. We were in the car driving somewhere or something like that, and my dad was being, old school Filipino dad. I don't know. He said something, and I said something, and I'm sorry, I spoke a little harshly, spoke back a little harshly. Or I said something, he was repeating something. I was repeating something again to him. And people that age, it's repetitive, right? And he said something like, oh, well, 30 years from now, your children will do the same to you, blah, blah, blah. And I remember very specifically saying, my children will not take care of you the same way my sister and I are taking care of you. Facts. I'm sorry. It just is. So I feel like, and I've talked to my peers, my colleagues, same age. We're in that Filipino sandwich generation, and I feel like we are the last, generation of Filipino-Americans that have that utang na loob, that obligation still, that our children will not. Okay. They won't take in parents, or you can't live with us, mom. My daughters are good girls, but still, it's like it's like, well, we'll get you an Airbnb over there, mom, kind of thing. And that's nothing bad. That's the American way. That is how they are raised. That is what they know, right? So here, my cousins are all still living with their parents, their mom and dad, right?
That's for sure.
They bring their spouse, they're all still living together. I'm just like, I could never even imagine that. My children could never even imagine that, So, but yeah, that was.
I can definitely see what you refer to when you talk about the sandwich generation. Because even the way I was raised, I don't have the Filipino culture such ingrained in me as you have, or as my parents have. And with this, I suppose we can say, I guess it's a dying generation of Filipino-Americans, right? With the real culture ingrained in them, and they're coming back here to the Philippines. What do you see from here on out, like with your children? Like, do you think that you can still ingrain that culture in them, or it's kind of set now? Even with my generation of Filipino-Americans, do you think that's set with the younger generation, that we're just gonna have this American mentality?
I think we are. I think we're stuck with it, and it's fine. Like I said, it's like, sometimes when I've clashed with my parents of when I'm being too American or rebellious teenager, I want to go, you're the one that brought me to this country. What do you expect? No, it's really like expectations. It really is expectations. Like, and I think that's why I'm seeing the trend, and I'm hopefully trying to get as on the curve early in this trend as much as possible, of Filipino-Americans like me moving here, or even non-Filipino-Americans who are of retirement age or coming to retirement age, because we see that like our children are not going to take care of us. Our American children are not going to take care of us.
Right.
Look at the American culture. There's assisted living places. There's nursing homes.
Yeah.
I Googled nursing homes here. I think I found 3.
Wow.
Right? Or
Yeah.
something like that,
Yeah.
right? I'm told like, well, Corrine, we don't put our parents here in nursing homes. They live with us, or we're still living with them, kind of thing, or they will maybe move out, but they will move close, so that they, if needed, they are very readily available. So I think that's why the trend is to come here, not to say that we want to get away from our children. That's actually going to be the hardest part for me. Is even if I'm just here for a few months at a time or 6 months at a time, and it's like I'll be very far away from my children, for my my new apo, that kind of thing. So but in the long run, I think we're realizing too that's like we got to take care of ourselves, because our children have lives of their own, and that's what we raise them, right? That's the American culture. 18, you're independent, bye,
Right, exactly.
go to school, go to college, and get a job, get your own house. That's the American culture. There's no, like you said, there's no the whole relationship. They don't emphasize that. They don't emphasize taking care of family. I mean, they do. Again, like I said, they do, but it's not part of the rat race.
Yeah.
It's not an agenda item in the rat race.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious, I can actually imagine that once your dad moved you to the Philippines, that took a lot of stress off of your shoulders.
It did.
Yeah.
It did, absolutely. And also still living with the guilt. The fact that we weren't able to take care of him ourselves. We're supposed to, whereas our American, non-Filipino friends and colleagues are going, you're so lucky you get to move into the Philippines and somebody's taking care of him for you. It's like, but we have there's that guilt. There's that
guilt there,
and I think a lot of it is cultural. Cultural. They're supposed to. You're supposed to take care of them.
For me personally, because I love my parents, but for me personally, I can definitely see where your kids would be coming from, and where most Filipino-American generation kids would be coming from when it comes to like taking care of their family, because we have like such a mindset instilled in us, like now it's my own life.
Yes.
But here in the Philippines, I noticed that the kids here, they're so family oriented.
Yes.
Like all my friends back in the US, they don't spend time with their families, but here in the Philippines, it's like, oh, Evan, I gotta go home because my family, we're gonna watch a movie tonight. I was taken back by the culture here.
Yes.
How family oriented they are in this country. But anyways, you said you've spoken to a lot of Filipino-Americans that are retiring here. What are their stories like? What are their experiences like? Why do they move here?
Some of it is heartbreaking for me. A lot of it, yes, like, the lower cost of living. They've made their US dollars and they can live very comfortably here, whereas they would be pretty much living, on a tight budget in the US. No matter how much they have saved, they still have to it's you can't go to Boracay or resort for once a month kind of thing. It's like, no, you're just you're not just getting by, but you're always cognizant of that money thing. Yeah. When I interviewed Mike from Las Vegas, when he moved here, he's like, money's no longer an issue. Can you imagine saying that?
Yeah.
That's awesome, right?
Absolutely.
68% of Americans, I think you're the one that had it in one of your videos too. 68% of Americans do not have adequate life savings.
Yeah,
or adequate even emergency fund. You should have a 6 months emergency fund of expenses, and we don't have that. So many Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So aside from the finances, the financial appeal of living in the Philippines, before I came here, I had one client, she said, I want to move back to the Philippines. It's like, I'm lonely here in America.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and she has family like in California and the East Coast. The U.S. is such a huge country,
Yeah.
and you don't see each other very often. Whereas, okay, maybe she might live in Cebu, and her family might live in Metro Manila. Still pretty close. Still
Right.
relatively close.
Right.
Much closer, right? So, yeah, I'm like, she's like, I'm lonely here.
A common reoccurring theme that I see with almost every expat that I've ever interviewed is that one of the main reasons they moved to the Philippines is because of the loneliness back in the
Yeah,
States.
absolutely.
Have you dealt with that back there in the U.S.?
Um, we are so, like, again, like you said, we're not a relationship-based society. We we're very goal-driven. We're very consumer-driven. I mean, might I even say materialistic-driven kind of thing. We don't place as much importance on relationship, and we're starting to come out of it. I think we've been the last couple of years, especially the pandemic. A lot of us realize what our priorities should be, and that is our family, our friends, relationship, mental wellness, mental
Right.
well-being, and so we've dialed back, but guess what? I think we forgot already. Again.
Again, yeah.
That was so 2022 ago, or
Yeah.
2021 pandemic ago. So now it's like we're back at it again,
Right.
and that's human nature. That's human nature. But yeah, I see,
sure.
you can be lonely anywhere. You can be lonely in a crowd. I've been lonely in a relationship. You can be lonely by yourself. But it's in here.
Yeah.
It's in an individual basis. But like the other day, last week, a couple days ago actually, I woke up early, still kind of jet lagged, in my house, in my dad's house, and everybody was still asleep. And I was having my coffee and my pandesal at the table, and I'm like, why am I sitting here by myself? I want to go outside and talk to somebody. And sure enough, there was somebody, one of our neighbors, my cousin was up and stuff, and we just started talking,
Nice.
Until you can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't do that in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
For California, I just can't do that.
Right.
There's nobody like that. I actually saw a reel by this white American woman. She was kind of saying the same thing. She was on Instagram. And this actually got me started about the whole epidemic of loneliness. When I Googled that, I go, oh my God, there's a report about it. Where she had just been in Mexico. She had vacationed in Mexico.
Right.
And she was saying the same thing. I mean, she walked outside. There were people to talk to and neighbors. And then she was back home outside her front porch, and she's like, I just can't. And she panned to the neighborhood, and there was nobody outside, right?
Wow.
At her street, there's nobody walking around. Everybody's inside,
Yeah.
probably watching Netflix on their phones or whatever. And she was like almost crying, and it was heartbreaking when you see. And this is what I've talked about with colleagues too. It's like, me, Evan, I've gotten used to the loneliness. In America, you get used to it.
Yeah, for sure.
I got used to it when I got divorced. I spent many holidays by myself when the kids were with their dad. You get used to the loneliness. You don't even consider yourself lonely anymore until you are here. To me, until I was here, surrounded by family all the time, surrounded by people I care about who care about me, Then you go back. That's when you go, damn, I'm lonely here.
It hits you again.
It does, yeah. So,
So I think that's a huge contributing factor of why so many expats are moving to the Philippines, is because people are actually open to having a conversation here.
Oh, absolutely. It's our culture. Yeah,
It's our culture. And you can go anywhere here and strike up a conversation, and people are generally going to be open to it. Whereas in the US, there's always like a feeling of there's an agenda behind why you're talking to me. Like, what are you trying to sell me? And it's not as common to do that here. Or, excuse me, in the US.
Yeah.
Now, moving back into a little bit about your story. So you grew up here, you lived your first 5 years in Manila.
Yes.
Born here. And then you moved to California.
Yep.
And when was the last time that you came back to the Philippines since then for a decent amount of time?
We came back here, and I spent a year here when I was 10 years old.
Okay.
So my dad was finishing up his MBA at Berkeley, and he's like, just go back. 'Cause the U.S. was kind of an experiment for him. Like, oh, let's go see what's over there. My parents were part of the brain drain. I don't know if you know what that is.
I'm not sure actually.
The brain drain. It was
Yeah.
in the early 70s
Okay.
where the Western world, like the United States, needed engineers, needed scientists.
Okay.
So they pulled from Asia, a lot of them
see.
from Asia. And my parents were both engineers. So they were part of the brain drain. They got their visa in 6 months or less, something like that.
Wow.
Like boom, right?
Yeah.
So we were just, just seeing. My dad was like, let's see what America's all about.
Mhm.
That's how he tells it. It's funny. So, so we were there for a couple years.
Mhm.
So he sent us back for a year. I went to St. Paul, spent a year there in St. Paul, and then after a year, he's like, you know what? I bought a company, bought a business. Come on back to the U.S.
Mhm.
So that's where we've been ever since.
Oh, I see. And
So
when you were back in the Philippines after being in the U.S. for quite a bit, what was it like for you at that age?
it was tough.
Really?
Those Catholic girls. That's Catholic school girls, man. They could be
Yeah.
rough.
I've heard stories here
That's right.
about the Catholic school girls. Let's just say don't enroll your children in the Catholic schools here in the Philippines because they're extreme here when you hear about the stories. But we were talking about like fitting in. You spent the majority of your life in the U.S. How was it like fitting in back here? In the
I did not fit in at all. I did not fit in at all. So, I spoke perfect English,
Right.
right? So that would kind of ostracize me a little bit.
Mhm.
I wore different clothes. I didn't have my uniform for the first 2 weeks because they were still being made or ordered or whatever.
Mhm.
So, I was still wearing like civilian American clothes. So it was just very different. My best friend was, I still remember her name, Joyce something. Joyce, she's Indonesian.
Okay.
So she was not a local Filipino as well, But I met some very nice people, some very nice girls too. But for the most part, my memory of that is basically it was not fun.
Yeah.
It was not a pleasant experience. But you know what? One of my friends said, even coming back here, we were talking about, do we fit here as well?
Mm.
Are we locals? Are we,
Yeah.
are we part of the local landscape? So I'm so used to it though, being not fitting in America
Yeah.
and then not fitting in here kind of thing.
Right.
But if anything, I can blend in a lot more here
Here,
than I do
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Although there's a lot of Filipinos in Las Vegas and that's fine. But
Right.
yeah, so,
Yeah, it's a very interesting like being Filipino American, and I would consider you Filipino American as
yeah,
well,
yeah.
since you spent the majority of your time there. It's a weird kind of like dynamic between
Yeah.
the two countries because you're not quite fully Filipino, but you're not quite fully American. But speaking of being Filipino American, you started a Facebook group called Balikbayan Stories.
I did,
Can you tell
yeah.
us a little bit about that and why you started it?
Well, thank you. It just started like about a few weeks before I came to here, and I figured, it's quite not expat-ish level. I
Right.
felt like, well, I'm not an expat, right? I was not born in a foreign country outside of the Philippines and then coming here kind of thing. So, so I'm still kind of in a balikbayan stage.
Right.
And a lot of my friends, I saw that they were posting, they were coming back to the Philippines. Balikbayan Stories is more of like a rediscovering Philippines, a rediscovering your roots and your culture as well. So,
I see.
yeah, so, it really tugs at your heartstrings. And I really think that, Balikbayan Stories is like, we all have different experiences when we come here.
Mhm.
If you look at my Facebook page, my own personal one, it's like, I'm not your typical tourist, right? Because I'm from here originally.
Yeah.
So of course, you can do the usual Boracay and all of those touristy places and they're beautiful. But for me, I like more of the local flavor that I would get.
Right.
I'm kind of like that in Las Vegas too, so
Yeah.
I like the local scene.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
And so as we close, last question. what do you see for your life in regards to like being in the U.S. and being in the Philippines maybe a year or two from now? Do you think you'll enjoy 2 months out of the year here, or how will you set up your lifestyle?
I think I would totally love it. I think I would totally love it. Being set up with to be able to sell real estate globally, that's been one of my dreams as well. It's meeting you and gonna write about your story as well. That has always been a first love of mine, is journalism and writing. And we have so many stories. And I think, the Balikbayan stories, to me, if anybody wants to tell me their Balikbayan story, I would love to hear it.
Absolutely.
There's always something different when you come back here, when Balikbayans, Filipino-Americans, even Canadians or whatever, they come here, it's a different experience for them.
Right.
It'll hit different kind of thing. So, and I love writing about that. So I think,
Probably back into journalism, maybe?
I think it's always going to be part of me. And I'm very
Amazing.
fortunate that I love telling people's stories, So, yeah.
Wow. So thank you so much, Corrine, for
Thank
being on the
you.
interview. And we'll also leave the link to Balikbayan Stories, a Facebook group. If any of you guys
Yeah.
want to be interviewed by Corrine or just have a community as Filipino-Americans coming back to the Philippines, we'll leave the link down below. So thank you for being on, and we'll see you guys in the next video. God bless.
Thank you.